This topic today, computer fraud, is something that has become more and more and more an issue for people in this country. I think it got a big boost as far as the criminals are concerned by the pandemic, because with the isolation from person-to-person contact that we all missed, we ended up turning to digital contact, either virtual meetings like on Zoom or WebEx, or connecting with family using FaceTime type programs. And as a result, people have purchased equipment, they have started using things that they really aren't too sure about. Because when they, I know for most of the people that I speak to, very few have been working with computers for any long period of time. Some of us started early. I happened to start in 1980, but computers back then were a little different. It filled the room. It was air conditioned because the heat generated by the equipment was pretty intense, to the point that the computer I used back in 1980 is less powerful than the laptop that this presentation is going to be given to you. So people have gotten the equipment, they've gotten the materials to go along with it, and for the most part, they know that most people are pretty happy about it. They've learned how to use certain applications, but they really don't know computers or the system that backs up the computer. And so hopefully today's presentation will give you a better understanding of how fraud, how scams, and how con artists get into your equipment and attempt to either steal money from you or using your identity to commit fraud. Our presenter today is Alan Baker. Alan's a retiree from the U.S. Air Force and a retiree from IBM. He is a member of our team who hails from Wilmington half of the year and Folsom, California, the other half of the year. Folsom may be a name that you recall, maybe Johnny Cash and a certain state facility in Folsom. Alan is on leave from Folsom, so he will be doing the presentation today. Alan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Elliott. It's all true, yes. I do live half the year in Folsom, and I'm out on good behavior. I started doing computer stuff even before 1980. And Elliott's right about the room full of stuff that has less horsepower than your phone does today. Despite all the advances in hardware and software, the scammers and fraudsters have advanced even more. So today we are just overwhelmed. I mean, every day you get half a dozen scam emails or scam phone calls. So we're going to talk about how to respond to those today, and scam text messages. So let's see. And I'm hoping that what we talk about today will enable you to tell your friends, because the fact that you're here tells me that you're probably pretty aware of this stuff, but your family members and your friends who may be less aware, share the wealth and help them out. I'm sure, does anybody know of a friend or a family member who's been scammed? My family members have also, yeah. So, why are criminals so eager to get into our phones and computers. Well, Willie Sutton said that's where the money is. Who's it said follow the money? I can't remember, but anyway, that's where it is, because today, hacking computers and so on, it's not for fun or credibility. These are not kids in the basement, in their mom's basement, wearing a hoodie and typing on keyboards. These are organized, large criminal enterprises that we're dealing with. So these are not amateurs, these are professional fraudsters that we're working with. And they are very good. They are convincing. They have the best technological tools, and they have the right psychological tools. So what do they want from us? Well, they want to steal our identity. They want to plant bad programs on our computers. They want to do ransomware to lock up the data that we have. They want to make our computers part of a botnet to do extortion on other people. There's a lot of ways that there are a lot of opportunities for them to make money off of us. The good news is, well, the bad news is that if you're a high-profile person or a corporation or a government entity, to keep the bad guys out, your security has to be almost perfect, because they are really looking for a way to worm their way in. But most of us aren't high-profile people. We're just ordinary Americans, and so we're not subject to specific attacks on our environments. So our security doesn't even need to be perfect. It just needs to be pretty good. It needs to be so that we're not the low-hanging fruit. And that's the reason that I put that picture on the first slide of the tree with the fruit on it, is that the scammers are really most interested in the easy ones, the low-hanging fruit. I mean, they're on the clock. They need to crank these victims through. So they're looking for the easy ones, the low-hanging fruit. And it doesn't take a lot to avoid being the low-hanging fruit. And that's really what I want to talk about today, is how to avoid being the low-hanging fruit that these guys can pick. So I'd encourage you to just ask questions as we go along. We can converse. You know, I'll stop for questions periodically, but I would encourage you to just say, "Hey, Alan, what about?" So, okay. So these are the things we're going to talk about today. The first three things on there, phishing, software, and passwords, are the three popular ways that the bad guys get into our phones and computers and tablets. Like 90% of all their activity involves one of those three methods, or more than one. So we'll talk about how to deal with those. We'll talk about what to do if you are a victim of fraud. And we'll talk about some resources that you can take home with you or use off into the future. So that's what we're going to do today. And the first of those is called phishing. It's phishing with a PH, also known as social engineering. I thought that's kind of a funny term, but it's sort of applying engineering principles to our psychology and bending our minds to the way that the bad guys want us to think. They want to trick us into doing something like giving away personal information or giving access to our computers. Has anybody ever received, anybody here ever received the phone call that says, we're Microsoft, I'm from Microsoft Tech Support, and we've observed a virus on your computer? Anybody ever get that call? Wow, nobody didn't get that call, I think. Yeah, obviously a scam, and a very popular scam. A friend of mine, in fact, that is what got me started on this whole fraud watch thing working with Elliott, was that a friend of mine got that call. He went for it hook, line, and sinker. He gave them access to his computer. He gave them his credit card number to help out. So what do you think happened? They gave him a virus, and they gave him a lot of charges on his credit card for other stuff. So, but he's a bright guy. He's not a dummy. He's a very bright guy. And it really pointed out to me that this isn't something that just happens to really dumb people. This happens to smart people. So they're so good at the psychological tricks that even they were able to sucker in my friend. So that's why we're here, to talk about those little nuances and tricks that they do on us. Of course, we get probably even more phishing through email than on the phone. You know, I get a few phone calls a day from scammers, and I get dozens of phishing emails every day. So this slide is really to help us identify those tells, as the card players say, about what could tip you off that this is a scam. Now this tells me here that my Facebook password has been hacked, and it's important for me to get my password reinstated to do one of the things that they say I should do. And you've all probably received something similar to this. Do you notice anything wrong with this email? Anything that gives you a clue about, not quite right? Yeah.
It says Facebook support.
Yeah?
Webmaster, they did.
Yeah. That ain't right. Right. They say at the very top, the word says that it's from Facebook support. Very convincing. But if you read a little farther along, that address of webmaster@aiken.something has nothing to do with Facebook. And that's the first and best way to tell where these things come from, because every email you get is going to have an email sender address. So, big red flag right there. How about another one? Any others that don't look right?
The zip file.
The zip file. Down at near the bottom it says there's an attachment, and that attachment is facebook.zip. Well, I would be suspicious of any attachment, but especially one that says it's a zip file or an image file. But I would be suspicious of anybody sending me an attachment. Somebody who I don't know at all sends me an attachment and I'm supposed to open that? Not a good idea. And the third tell on this one is where it says your Facebook profile. You know, when you mouse over a link, it shows where you're going to go at the bottom. And so when I did this screenshot, I moused over your Facebook profile, and down at the bottom it says where it's going to take me, which is to deviate.olotion.something. Not at all Facebook. So these are 3 good things that you can use to tell whether it's really from Facebook or from a bad guy. The address of the sender, the attachment, and mouse over the link that they're going to take you to. And those 3 things will tell you a lot. I mean, right away you can identify this as a bad one. Now, we're all using our phones more these days than we used to, and the phones just don't have that much real estate, so they don't necessarily put all of this on the screen. For example, when you look at the from, it may say just Facebook support and not actually show you the email sender, the sender's email. In that case, if you have any doubts, and and the hair kind of went up on the back of your neck and you just don't feel right about this, set that one aside and go look at it on your computer where you can see this. Don't open it. And I guess that's a more general rule, is if in doubt, something just doesn't seem right, don't open it.
Alan?
Yes, Florence.
I wonder, not that it's a safety, 100% safety barrier, but a secure website should have said HTTPS.
Oh, sharp. She's got sharp eyes. This is actually a very old slide, and that site, it's so old that it says HTTP instead of HTTPS. The world has moved on, and almost every website today is HTTPS rather than HTTP. So Florence's question is whether seeing HTTPS should make you feel better about the website than just HTTP, because HTTPS provides encryption between you and the website. And surprisingly, Florence, the answer is no, it doesn't provide anything at all. Because the scammers know that the right way to do things is to use HTTPS, and so they do.
So let me reverse the question. If we see HTTP, but this is for the sure sign that this is definitely not the safe side, or this is wrong as well?
It really doesn't tell us anything about the origin. It only tells us that the connection, whether the connection between our computer and the web server is encrypted. In this case, you might be more suspicious. It's probably either something, because almost every professional website today uses HTTPS. It's either a scammer, somebody who doesn't have a clue, an amateur, or something. But it's a good observation. I wouldn't rely on it, but it would make you wonder if it was HTTP, just as it did make you wonder. Right? Questions about that?
What is the word junk on the top right-hand side? Is that an alert or what? Sometimes.
I think that was an artifact of the email client software that I was using at the time. You could push that button and it would just send that off to your junk folder, or you could push the delete button and it would just delete it. So the right answer in this case would be to press the junk button and send it away to the junk folder.
Sometimes they have scam an email or a telephone call and it's a scam, which means don't touch it.
Right. The companies that make the web browsers are getting smarter about this stuff, and they will say, warning, warning, this one doesn't look right to us. We know that that sender or a destination in one of those links is bad. They've had some report of it or whatever. So yes, do take that advice seriously, and just send it to the junk file. Don't go there.
Why would you put it in junk and not delete it?
It doesn't matter. Either one works. When, depending on how your email is set up, it may send it to sort of a suspense file first and then truly delete it. But either works. The main point is just get rid of it. And while we're talking about that, sometimes they will say in the body of the email, to unsubscribe, you know, if you think this is suspicious, to unsubscribe, click here. What do you think about that? Any other thoughts? If it's a reputable company that you know, that's a good practice. If you're just, you don't want to get any more news from AARP, just say unsubscribe. But if it's not a company that you know, what will happen is they will not unsubscribe you. They instead will add you to the other sucker list that said, this person, this was actually received at somebody's email. So we know first that it's a live email address, and second that it was received by a live person. And now let's put that person into the sucker database, and you will get ever more and more and more of these spam emails.
Just a quick comment, which is the same is true on your phone. If you get a call on your phone and it's from, well, one of the more popular ones right now is credit card services. You may have gotten a call. Hi, this is Sarah from Credit Card Services for MasterCard, Discover, and Visa. Well, obviously, there's no company called MasterCard, Discover, and Visa. They're three separate companies. And she said something at the end, which is, if you want to unsubscribe, press 2, or something like that. The minute you press any number to unsubscribe, the reality, just like Alan described on the email, is you're now subscribing. So you just simply want to ignore that, hang up the phone.
Yeah, and the general point on all of these frauds and scams, that you didn't initiate this conversation. Somebody else initiated the conversation. Give them as little as possible. Don't give them a click. Don't give them an answer. Don't give them a touch on the phone. Just hang up the phone or delete the email. That's the best way to handle them. Other questions? Okay. Updating software. You probably, how many of you use Windows? Most, okay. Once a month, Microsoft sends out this giant blast of patches. It's called Patch Tuesday. And you have to wait while it updates your computer with all this software. If you have a phone, they're a little more subtle about it. They go ahead and do it automatically, and then they may remind you to reboot your phone, or they may not, but that's a little bit more automatic. But in any case, it's kind of a pain to do all this software updating. And as you can see, Santa's getting impatient because Rudolph is wasting his time while updating his software. But this is one of the primary ways that the bad guys get into our computers and phones, is through software that has vulnerabilities in it. In my past life, I was a software developer. And you've probably heard the expression that in real estate, the three most important things are location, location, and location. Well, in software development, the three most important things are schedule, schedule, and schedule. And software developers tend to get a little, they're kind of under the gun to get that software finished and out the door on schedule. And they're human, and they make mistakes, and they're more likely to leave vulnerabilities in that software. So somebody may eventually discover that. Sometimes it's the bad guys who discover it first. Sometimes it's security researchers that discover it. But as soon as the word gets out that there is a vulnerability, the bad guys are going to be on it. Because if it's something, that vulnerability gives them access into your computer, hey, wonderful, I'm in Tom's computer now and I can do whatever. That's the bad news. The good news is that usually at the same time, the vendor of the software provides a fix, a patch, an update to the software so that it eliminates that vulnerability. So that's what the Patch Tuesday is all about. Once a month we get this flood of fixes. Most of them are to resolve security vulnerabilities in our software. So when that happens, of course, when Microsoft sends out that notice or sends those to us, the bad guys know at the same time that these are the vulnerabilities that are being fixed. And they are in a race to your computer. They're in a race with you because they're looking for people that have not applied those updates yet, because they know that those are wide open to them. So the good news is that when you get that notice from whatever software company you have, go ahead and apply it now. It may take a few minutes that you can't use the computer, but it's really important to win that race with bad guys. A few years ago, you may remember about the Equifax credit bureau that lost millions of our credit records to somebody who got into their system. It was because of this exact situation. There was a vulnerability discovered. The software vendor released an update for it. They actually received it at Equifax, but they sat on it. They didn't actually install the fix. Well, 2 days later, the bad guys were in there and stole all of our credit information, and it caused a lot of hardship on everybody. So this is just an example of how it happens at a bigger scale than our own computers, but it's another example of the race to get it and get those patches installed. Passwords. Does anybody here love passwords? Me neither. Oof. They are the bane of our existence, but we're kind of stuck with them for a while. There are some solutions in the pipeline that will help us get rid of passwords in the long run. But in the meantime, we need to deal with them. So what do you think? How about that first question? Should I change my password frequently? What do you think about that one? Anybody got any thoughts?
Wait a minute, I don't.
You don't change it frequently. Okay. Yes?
Password program.
I'm sorry?
Password program.
Well, yeah, sometimes the website forces us to change the password.
The password monitor does it automatically every time you log on. Like hash names
Oh, you're talking about, yes.
or generator.
Yes. We'll talk about password managers in a moment. They're a great idea. I'm a big fan. A lot of people think that, or it used to be common wisdom, when I was working at IBM, I had to change my password every 30 days. Some research showed, actually that's a really bad idea, because every time you change it, you sort of, well, first time you use password 1 and then it's time to change it. What'll I use? Oh, password 2. And they all start getting, the passwords get weaker and weaker over time. So there are still a few websites that insist on changing passwords, but you actually have the right idea. Don't change it unless it's necessary. Changing periodically is not that beneficial. It's harmful, actually. What about using a password in multiple places?
No.
Right. Don't do that. If you're using your same password for Facebook and for your bank, what happens when your Facebook password gets hacked? Well, then the bad guys have access to your bank password too. So he's exactly right. Don't do that. It's a pain in the keister to maintain separate passwords for every website, but that's what password managers are good at.
Sadly, the companies have made it easier for us to be lazy by giving you options when you go to log in that say, do you want to log in with your Google password?
Sure.
Or do you want to log in with your Facebook password? And so, in a way, they're contributing to the vulnerability by providing that option.
That's very true. When you see that on a website, log in with your Facebook or Google or Amazon password. If it's a new website and you think, oh man, another password to keep track of, go ahead and use your email. Don't use those shared ones, because it's just, as Elliott said, it's contributing to the problem. So what makes a password strong?
Different letters and numbers.
Different letters and numbers, okay. Anything else?
Characters, special characters.
Some odd characters. What else?
Nonsense. I mean, there's nothing, it doesn't make any sense to anybody, I think.
Okay.
Or random.
One of the most popular passwords on the internet, I think it's number 8. I think the word password is number 2 most popular. But baseball is a very popular one. How long do you think it would take to crack that password? That long. Not even seconds. Instantly. Because there are dictionaries. There are automated word lists that would look up and find baseball immediately. If it's a dictionary word, don't even think about using it, because it's going to be hacked. I've done this myself, by the way. I was running a website, and just for fun, I tried running this automated word list tool, and I immediately hit one of the subscribers whose password was, I think, Ranger. So don't use dictionary words. A single dictionary word just won't do it. So random letters and characters. That works if it's long enough. How long do you think it would take? You know, 8 used to be the number of characters was kind of the standard password length. How long do you think that would take to crack an 8-character word with password with random letters, capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters? How long do you think it would take? Less than a minute, 40 seconds. Really? Now, a decade ago, that would have been okay because it would have probably taken days to crack such a password. But in 2022, about 40 seconds. 40 seconds.
So,
Go ahead.
what kind of password should you use?
Oh, thank you. We're going to talk about that on this slide. So, what do you think about that first one there? Absolutely made up of special characters, and there's a number in there replacing the L, and the A is made up of 2, what do you call those bars anyway? What do you think? How long would it take to crack that one?
40 seconds.
No time at all, because that's in the dictionary. Because these hacker dictionaries also do substitutions of letters. I mean, it's an obvious one. I mean, who wouldn't substitute a 1 for an L? Who wouldn't make an A out of these two bars? Never use a dictionary word, even if you slip in these substitute things for characters. How about that second one, the 8-character one? How long does that one take?
Well, you said 40 seconds.
Exactly. It would take 40 seconds to crack that one. How about the third one? Correct horse battery staple. How long would it take to crack that one? It's 25 characters.
40 seconds.
Millions of years. Really? Even though it doesn't have any special characters, it doesn't have uppercase, it doesn't have numbers. Millions of years to crack that password. Why? Because it's long.
Well,
Yes.
so many of the websites limit the length of the password.
Isn't that dumb?
I don't know.
It is dumb. The longer your password is, the less likely it is to be cracked.
Question, how about using different languages? Because I go back into Asia and I have different languages in my head, both English versions and the native versions. And I mix that with English and I mix that with numbers. Is that effective?
If there's multiple words and it's long.
Well, the long is usually controlled by the company.
That's true. You've got to stay within the limit that they...
I mean, I try and go long and they say, I'm sorry, you exceeded the number of words in a letter, so there you go.
Yeah, unfortunately, then you just have to truncate it down to whatever they will accept. But the reason I advocate correct horse battery staple is it's long, which makes it much more secure, and it's easy to type. Now, you may not remember correct horse battery staple, but you can type correct horse battery staple in about 3 seconds, whereas with O_Q, you're going to be pecking at it away for 20 seconds before you get it right. So I think that using 4 random words like that is just a beautiful way to solve this problem.
How about things like LastPass generating, the generative passwords for you? How effective? I mean,
very effective.
Okay.
I mean, it would be even more effective if these were completely random 25 characters. Although, after the first million years that it takes to crack the password, it doesn't much matter. But your point is right that the generated passwords from password managers are excellent. And we're going to talk some more about that too. But first, where do you store your password? What is a good place to keep your passwords? How about keeping them in your head?
No way, Jose.
Not a good idea. I have 260 in my password manager, so I don't think I could keep that in my head. So I don't even try, and you shouldn't either.
I use a spreadsheet.
Okay, a spreadsheet. What about other ideas?
A little blue notebook, it would make you cry.
A little blue notebook is beautiful. I love that idea. Other thoughts? So, oh yes.
I read mine as paper in code.
You have it on a piece of paper in code.
In code. And
Wow.
then in pencil, when I change it, I erase it.
Piece of paper is good.
Hidden.
Hidden. Right. So who are we trying to protect our passwords from? Who are we defending against? Are they the people that are in our house, or are they people that are in some place out on the internet?
Someplace out on the internet.
Yeah, right. And that's why your little blue book and your little piece of paper are just excellent ways to keep track of passwords. Now, I don't think your spreadsheet is, because what happens when bad guys get into your computer and they find your spreadsheet? It's game over. But you mentioned having a password manager, and that's beauty right there. So here we go, password managers. For those of you who are Mac-alites like Elliott, you may know this as a keychain, but it is a place where it's a vault where passwords are stored in an encrypted form. They are not accessible. Even if somebody breaks into your computer, they will not be able to see the passwords. And you were asking about the passwords that they generate. They're very good. They're random characters that are up to as long as that website will accept. You can also put your own passwords in, type them in if you prefer. As long as you think it through and don't give them a weak password, they'll store it in the vault. They will automatically fill those passwords into your website, so you don't have to think about it and type it in. They will just key them right in there for you. I think they're a great invention. I use mine all the time. And who's using password managers? A couple of you, I think, are. Didn't you mention that you were using a password manager also? Yeah, genius. Those are really good, and I encourage all of you to get a password. Yes.
So I have a question. Is there any history or probability that the password manager enterprise be hacked? Has
Right.
it happened and could it happen?
Right. The ones that I'm aware of have designed their systems so that they don't have the I didn't describe how this works, but you have a master password. They don't have it. They're not able to get access to your password. So if the password manager or the password manager company are hacked, they don't have your password, and it's really not possible for the bad guy to get into yours from there.
So it's zero probability of this happening.
Oh, I would never go to zero, but it has never happened. I'll put it that way, that I'm aware of. These have been around for a decade or so, and to my knowledge, nobody has ever been able to do that. So I'll never say never, but it's a pretty good bet.
Not yet.
So questions about password managers? I mean, I named 3 of them, but they're all good. Each has different features. Some Some are free, some cost some money, some share onto multiple devices, but they're all, it's a really good idea. I encourage you to experiment.
There's a signal on the bottom of the screen that says secure. That blocks it in the password. What does that mean?
It's just an icon that I put on the slide.
So it has no.
Well, it is actually, the meaning is that it's a secure place to store your passwords. Instead of having it on a file on your computer or storing it in your bookmarks like I used to do, it's a secure place, it's encrypted, and the only way you can get to it is with the master password, which, by the way, is the one thing that you want to have in your head. That's all you need. If you know that one password in your head, all the rest of them are in the vault. So you only have to remember one thing, which is a good thing for me because usually I can remember about two things. Okay. FIDO2, that's the way that eventually we're going to get rid of passwords. But it's just being adopted as a standard, and you're not going to see it. Maybe you'll start seeing it next year a little bit, but hold on to those passwords for a while. It's going to be a while. Anybody here use two-factor authentication, also known as multi-factor authentication? Good man, good woman. Okay. This is an important one. As you probably heard of Microsoft, they're a company that owns a lot of different properties. They own Hotmail, Outlook, Microsoft.com. They did a study and found that of the people whose accounts that were hacked, 99.9% of them did not use two-factor authentication. 99.9% of the people who were hacked did not use two-factor authentication. Now this is another, like Florence was saying a minute ago, it's not quite 100%, but I would sure take those odds. If I could get to 99.9% of not being hacked, I would go there. So, two-factor authentication is a way to really help keep out the bad guys. What is it? Well, you may be doing it already and not know it. When you go to the ATM, there are two factors. You have your card that you stick into the machine, and you have a PIN number. That's the second factor. More generally, two factors are two of the three: something you have, something you know, or something you are. Now, in addition to the ATM, there's other examples. For example, the most popular one is a text message. When you send in you submit your password, and they send you a text message with a 6-digit code. Then you type in the 6-digit code, that's your second factor. That's the most popular one, and it's good. Even better, if it's available on that website, is an authenticator app like this one. It's much more secure. It can't be intercepted because it's not being sent out. The password changes. There's a new password every 30 seconds. So it's impossible for bad guys to intercept that one. And a third way to do second factor is with a hardware key. And I'm reaching around in my pocket because I think I have one in here. No, that's a flash drive. Do I have it in my pocket? Just change. I didn't bring it. Bummer. Well, I can't show you that. But it looks like a flash drive. It plugs into your computer. It's a hardware key. It's unique. It's the most secure way. Google started using this like 4 years ago. And they have had zero, okay, Florence, zero break-ins with people using hardware security key. So 3 good ways, but not all 3 are going to be available to any website or provider, but where it's possible, take one of them. Probably it'll be text messages because everybody seems to prefer that, especially for accounts that you care about, like your bank. Really important on the ones you care about, yes.
So do you plug that thing into your computer and it just locks everything up?
Well, the way it works is that they have you type in your regular password,
Yes.
and then it says insert your key. So you plug it in,
It tells you to do that.
it tells you to do that, and the little wheels turn, and then it says boop, and you're in.
Really? So,
Right.
and if you leave it in there,
That's fine.
Safety.
That's fine. You might actually have to unplug it and plug it in again when the time comes, but you can leave it in there if yours, yeah.
And
But it-
keeps everything locked up.
Right, it's a second factor. The fact that you have that key, you've registered that key with the website, and only you have that key. I mean, it's theoretically possible for somebody to steal it, but it's unlikely. And you have that key, and you plug it in. Question?
You have to use that every time you go onto the website.
If you registered your key with a particular website, yes, that is the second factor.
Aren't you, you're dependent on the website. I mean, I have banks that accept just passwords, and then I have banks that send me numbers, and then I have banks that I have to read something on the screen with a machine, and then that's, but it's all dependent on what the
What they
owner of the
provide.
website has, right?
Yes,
You
that
can't- there's no way you can do it by yourself.
That's correct.
Okay.
You're dependent on them, just like with the password length. You can only choose whatever they offer. But if you have a choice, choose the strongest one.
Okay.
Okay, almost done. How do you get back once somebody's gotten in? I have a friend who belonged to a camera club, and the bad guys got into the camera club computer, took it over. Actually, they locked everything up with ransomware. Said, pay us 10 Bitcoin and you can have your computer back and all your pictures and everything. It was a camera club. They don't have any money. They wouldn't have done it anyway. So they just basically lost it. But there would have been a simple way to recover from that if he'd had a backup. He did not have a backup. So if somebody plants malware on your computer today, and you backed it up yesterday before they planted it, you just go back to your backup, restore, and you're good to go.
System restore.
Well, that's the key question, is what kind of backup and restore? And that's why I said back up the whole computer, system and files, everything, every bit on that computer.
How do you do that? I mean, here.
There are programs. I use one that's called Veeam, V-E-E-A-M, and it literally backs everything up onto a little external hard drive, which you can buy from Amazon for $60 or something like that. And it contains everything that's on your computer, so that when you need to restore, you just push the button and it goes back to where, back in time by a day or to wherever the thing was done.
Apple has a built-in piece in the operating system called Time Machine.
Right.
And that you can set as many backups as you want, including a cloud backup, and it will, in the background, every hour, do a backup on that drive. At the end of the day, it consolidates the backups and then starts again. And then after 2 days, 3 days, it then takes the week and it gives you a single backup for the week. So it's very effective. And if you don't have a large hard drive, typical hard drive of 500 gigabytes, let's say, you can actually put them on a thumb drive.
Right. The key thing is to get everything. Now, Apple's Time Machine does that. One thing that that's important is the last item here, unplug it. Because if you back up to your hard drive is still connected to your computer, and the bad guys get into your computer, they are also into that external hard drive. So unplug it. I've been doing this for years, and I've had occasion to use it once. And you probably will never have to use it, God willing. But if you need it once, it's really useful.
What did you say the name of your program is?
It's called VEEAM, Windows Agent. You Google that and you'll find it. And it's free. Yes, ma'am.
When anything goes wrong in my computer, I just call Amazon, not Amazon, what's the one who makes the computers? Apple. I call Apple, and I'll say, I think something may be wrong with the computer. She shares my computer, and she says everything's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Every time I do, she said, anytime you think something's wrong, just call us.
Sure. If you've got an expert to call, then that's great.
It's all right.
Sure.
Okay. It's easy to do.
Right. But it's important to have some backup. It sounds like since you have an Apple computer, you're probably getting the Time Machine benefits that Elliott talked about.
Just one quick comment, and that is that electronic devices and mechanical hard drives do fail. The inevitable thing is if you haven't had a failure of a drive, hold your breath, you will have one soon. And so having multiple backups is a wise thing to do. That way, and I've experienced this where I had several years ago, I had a computer crash and then my backup hard drive crashed. And I was kind of going, there is a little more stability today with the solid state drives, but they are subject to possible electronic surges which can cook them in the same way that a mechanical hard drive can fail.
So Murphy's Law says that something will go wrong at the worst possible time. About 3 years ago, my house got struck by lightning. Who would have expected it?
But the thing is, backup drives are cheap. We're not talking about hundreds of dollars. And given the amount of data that most people have on their computers, if you haven't backed up, or basically you're not storing things on other drives, most computer drives are, I would say, 256 megs to 1 terabyte, gigs to 1 terabyte. For the most part, you can very easily get a backup drive that will more than be sufficient.
Right.
And getting a couple of them, they aren't that expensive.
Yep, that's true. Well, we're just about to the end. What happens if you discover that something went horribly wrong? There's some very nice people at the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline. And you can just call them up and say, I think I've been scammed or I've got a problem. They're very good at quietly and confidently and patiently talking with people about problems that they've had. So I strongly recommend that. Another thing that you can call, another number you can call is the Vermont Attorney General's number. They also encourage people to call if they feel like they have had a scam or something like that going on. Elliott and I are on the AARP Vermont Fraud Watch Network, and that's our website there. The Fraud Watch sign up, you can go to that one and you can get periodic notices. Oh, you've got people signed up already for
Somebody
the
has already given me your email address, so
We'll get
I can register.
You'll register us
You'll
for
get
it.
an email from AARP
Right.
confirming your registration.
Do you need to be a member of AARP?
No. It's all free. No, don't have to be a member. And the last line there is just where, if you want to look up this presentation, that's where you'll find it.
I didn't get a lot of luck. I got a phone call when I was helping a friend from the IRS,
Oh,
and they were going to, if I didn't pay my taxes, just send the money, you know. So I said, thank you so much. What's the phone number, please? Let me know. So I got all the information, and then right after I hung up, I called the Attorney General, but I never heard anything back in any way, shape, or form.
yeah.
So,
There's two kinds of numbers you can call.
Yeah.
One is to report, and the other is to get help.
yeah,
So
I was reporting.
the report number won't give you much feedback, but the top two there, those are specifically to get help, and they will talk to you.
Okay.
Elliott and I are on Fraud Watch. You could be too. If this is something that interests you, we encourage you to join us, and we would love to bring you on board.
And it doesn't take a lot of involvement with designing and creating programs. We do that, but sometimes just as Alan has on his list, standing at a table and handing out information, that becomes really important, getting the word out on this.
So, we've learned how to recognize phishing. Now it's time to do your homework. Update your software, use strong, unique passwords, get a password manager, back up your devices. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.